All right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time, we're going all the way to South Africa
Ooh, sounds interesting.
to take a look at employment equity.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from this source called What is Employment Equity?
Okay.
And we really want to understand not just what it is, but like, why is it so important in South Africa?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you ready to learn some new things?
Always. This is more than just like rules and laws. It's really about social and economic justice, like woven into the history of South Africa.
Okay, so let's set the stage here a little bit.
Sure.
What is employment equity?
Yeah.
I feel like that's a term that gets thrown around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But what does it actually look like in practice?
Yeah.
Or what does it actually mean?
It's a bit of a buzzword.
Yeah.
But at its core, it's about creating a workplace where everyone has a fair shot, regardless of their background.
Right.
I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
You're applying for a job, and what matters is your talent and your skills, not the color of your skin or where you come from.
Okay, so everyone deserves an equal opportunity to succeed.
Yeah.
But why is this so important in South Africa specifically?
Well, I mean, South Africa has a unique history,
Yeah.
right? Marked by apartheid,
Mm-hmm.
a system that created deep inequalities.
Yeah.
Employment equity is a direct response to that legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, simply saying like, no more discrimination isn't enough.
Right.
We need concrete actions to undo the damage
Right.
and create a level playing field.
So it's not just about wiping the slate clean.
Yeah.
It's about actively building something new and fairer.
Exactly.
And that's where the Employment Equity Act of 1998 comes in, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the foundation.
The act is the cornerstone
Yeah.
of employment equity in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
It lays out the legal framework,
Yeah.
but it's not just about avoiding lawsuits.
Right.
It's about building a better future.
Yeah, okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Okay.
But when we talk about leveling the playing field,
Yeah.
who are we specifically trying to help?
That's where this concept of designated groups comes in.
Okay.
And these are groups that have been historically disadvantaged in the workplace.
Right.
The act names several: women, people with disabilities, and Black people, which includes African, colored, and Indian or Asian persons.
Okay, so it makes sense that those groups would be prioritized given the past, right?
Yeah,
But it sounds like it's not just about righting historical wrongs.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Young people might be considered a designated group
Wait, really? Why is that?
because they lack the experience
Oh.
needed to compete for jobs.
Oh, okay.
It's about recognizing that disadvantages can come from different places and that everyone, regardless of their background or circumstances, deserves a fair shot.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It really broadens the scope of what a disadvantage can be. So having a diverse workforce, it's not just the right thing to do, it benefits businesses too, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, so.
You get more diverse perspectives at the table.
Right.
Leads to better decisions, more innovative solutions, and it can even help businesses connect better with a diverse customer base.
Oh, wow.
So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, totally.
For everyone.
Now let's talk about affirmative action.
Okay.
I know this is a term that gets kind of a bad rap. Some people see it as reverse discrimination.
Yeah.
So what's the reality here? What does it actually mean within this context?
Affirmative action is often misunderstood.
Okay.
It's not about giving anyone an unfair advantage.
Right.
It's about proactively creating a more inclusive workplace.
Okay.
I think of it as a toolkit with strategies designed to increase
Okay.
the representation of designated groups. And it goes way beyond just setting quotas.
Okay. So unpack that toolkit for me a little bit. What
Sure.
kind of strategy?
Well, one strategy is targeted recruitment.
Okay.
Companies can specifically look for candidates from designated groups.
Okay.
Imagine a company like actively seeking out women engineers.
Right.
Or creating internship programs for people with disabilities.
Yeah.
It can also involve providing training programs
Okay.
to help people develop the skills they need. And mentorship is another powerful tool.
So it's about acknowledging that just having an open door policy isn't enough.
Right.
You got to build pathways for people to walk through that door.
Absolutely.
But that must come with its own set of challenges, right?
Yeah, you're right.
What are some of those?
There are definitely challenges to implementing all this.
Yeah.
But before we dive into those, I wanted to highlight one company
Okay.
that is doing this really well.
Okay.
Have you heard of Sasol?
The name rings a bell.
Yeah, they're a major energy and chemical company
Okay.
in South Africa.
Okay.
And they've woven employment equity into the core of their business. One of their key initiatives is a learnership program targeted at bringing people from designated groups
Okay.
and equipping them with the skills needed for in-demand jobs
Oh, wow.
within their company.
So they're not just hiring to fill a quota.
Exactly.
They're actively investing in people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Creating opportunities where there might not have been any before.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But I'm sure even with the best intentions,
Yeah,
there are hurdles to overcome.
there are.
What are some of the challenges companies face when they're trying to implement this?
One of the biggest hurdles is simply resistance to change.
Okay.
Some people are uncomfortable with affirmative action.
Mm-hmm.
They might worry about things like reverse discrimination
Yeah.
or think it's unfair to give preference to certain groups.
So there can be some deeply held beliefs and misconceptions that get in the way.
Absolutely.
And then there's the challenge of balancing
Yes.
the need for diversity with the concept of meritocracy. Right.
100%.
So you want a diverse workforce, but you also want to make sure you're hiring the most qualified.
Right. How do you ensure both?
Yeah.
It's a question a lot of companies grapple with.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
Mm.
It seems like open and honest dialogue is really important
Absolutely.
to address these concerns.
For sure.
But I'm curious, what happens when companies don't comply with the act?
Ooh, good question.
Are there repercussions?
Yes, there are repercussions.
Okay, this is where it gets real.
Yeah.
What kind of tools are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Fines, penalties, public shaming. What are we looking at?
Well, it could definitely get serious.
Okay.
The Department of Employment and Labor is responsible for enforcing the act,
Okay.
and they have several tools at their disposal.
Okay.
They can issue compliance orders
Mm-hmm.
requiring companies to take specific steps to rectify
Okay.
their employment equity practices.
Right.
If companies fail to comply with these orders, they can face hefty fines. In some cases, they could even face legal action
Wow.
or be barred from doing business with the government.
Wow. So this is not something to brush aside. The stakes are high,
They are.
but even with the law and the risk of penalties, putting it into practice can't be a walk in the park.
You are right.
So what does it actually look like?
Yeah, it's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process that requires a real commitment.
Okay.
Companies have to do the work
Yeah.
to develop a comprehensive employment equity plan.
Okay. Walk me through that.
Okay.
What goes into that?
First, they need to assess their current workforce demographics.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they now?
Yeah.
What are the gaps?
Okay.
Then they need to set clear, measurable goals for improvement.
Okay.
And it's not just about setting those goals.
Right.
It's about outlining the strategies to achieve them.
Okay.
And that might involve targeted recruitment, training programs, mentorship initiatives, or a combination of all of those.
So you really have to think it through.
Yeah. And of course, it's about monitoring the progress
Right.
and making adjustments along the way.
So it's not just good intentions.
No.
There's real accountability.
100%.
Built
And remember Saucil.
Yeah.
One of the ways they've achieved such success
Mm-hmm.
is through robust monitoring and reporting
Okay.
of their employment equity progress.
Yeah.
They're very transparent about their goals
Okay.
and their achievements.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I'm curious about smaller companies.
Yeah.
So we know the Act focuses mainly on larger companies, but what about those with fewer than 50 employees?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
While the Act doesn't legally bind smaller companies in the same way,
Right.
they are still strongly encouraged to embrace the principles of employment equity.
Okay.
In fact, many smaller businesses see it as a competitive advantage.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, for starters, it helps them attract and retain top talent. In a competitive job market, being known as an inclusive and equitable employer
Right.
can be a huge draw
Right.
for skilled workers.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Absolutely.
You embrace diversity, it helps you attract talent, which in turn helps you succeed,
Exactly.
and then you can invest more in diversity.
Yeah, it's a wonderful cycle.
Yeah, totally.
And beyond attracting talent, it can also boost a company's reputation and brand image.
Okay.
You know, consumers are increasingly conscious of social responsibility, and they're more likely to support businesses that align with their values.
So even if it's not legally mandated,
Yeah,
there's a strong business case
there is.
for embracing it,
Absolutely.
no matter the size.
100%.
This is all really fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What does the future of employment equity look like?
Okay.
Are there any Any trends or developments on the horizon that we should be paying attention to?
There are some really exciting things happening in this space.
Oh, okay.
One major trend is a focus on diversity
Okay.
that goes beyond just race and gender.
Okay.
So companies are starting to think about how to create workplaces that are inclusive of people with disabilities, members of the LGBTQ plus community,
Okay.
people from different age groups,
Right.
and people from a wider range of socioeconomic backgrounds.
So we're acknowledging that diversity is more than just ticking boxes.
Exactly.
It's about embracing the richness of human experience.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
And technology is also playing a growing role
Okay.
in promoting employment equity.
Mm-hmm.
For example, some companies are using AI-powered tools.
Hold on.
Yeah.
How does AI factor into this?
Well, traditional hiring processes can be vulnerable to unconscious bias,
Okay.
where our hidden prejudices influence our decisions without us even realizing it.
Right.
AI can help mitigate that
Okay.
by focusing on skills and qualifications.
Rather than subjective factors that might lead to discrimination.
It's like using technology to level the playing field
Right.
in a whole new way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it sounds like we're on the cusp of a really exciting time
I think
for employment equity in South Africa.
I agree.
Yeah,
There are definitely challenges ahead,
you're right.
but I'm optimistic
Okay.
about the future.
Mhm.
We're seeing a growing awareness of the importance
Yeah.
of diversity and inclusion,
Yeah.
and we're starting to develop more innovative and effective ways
Yeah.
to make it a reality.
That's a really encouraging note to end on.
That's right.
For our listeners that want to explore this a little bit more, we'll have some links in the show notes.
Perfect.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a question.
Okay.
If you could design the ideal employment equity program,
Yeah.
one that truly levels the playing field
Mm-hmm.
without creating new imbalances, what would it look like?
That's a fantastic question.
Yeah.
It challenges us to think beyond the current frameworks.
Right.
And imagine what true equity could look like.
We've explored the what and the why,
Yes.
but the how is an ongoing journey,
Absolutely.
a constant evolution.
Yeah, it requires imagination, innovation, and a willingness to challenge the status quo.
Well said. To all our listeners out there, keep learning, keep questioning, and keep pushing for a more just and equitable world. That's it for part 1 of our deep dive into employment equity in South Africa. We'll be back soon to explore even more facets of this complex and important issue.
Welcome back. It's great to continue exploring employment equity in South Africa.
I'm ready to dive back in.
Yeah.
In part 1, we covered a lot of ground,
We did.
what it is, why it matters, how it works. But with any policy or initiative,
Yeah.
there are bound to be challenges
Absolutely.
and criticisms.
For sure.
So let's talk about those.
Okay.
What are some of the common criticisms of the act?
One of the most common is that progress has been too slow.
Okay.
You know, the act has been in place for over 2 decades. But some sectors, particularly those historically dominated by white males, still struggle
Yeah.
to achieve truly equitable representation.
So for some, the pace of change isn't matching the urgency.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can be frustrating,
Right.
especially for those who've been historically marginalized.
Yeah.
They're looking for more tangible results.
Right.
Another criticism is that the focus on quotas
Okay.
can sometimes lead to tokenism.
You mentioned tokenism earlier. I think it's worth defining that term clearly.
Yeah.
What do we mean when we say that?
Tokenism is when companies hire people from designated groups just to meet the numbers
Okay.
without genuinely valuing their contributions
Right.
or creating a truly inclusive environment.
So it's like checking boxes instead of embracing diversity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a superficial form of compliance
Right.
rather than a genuine commitment
Yeah.
to change.
And when that happens, it undermines the purpose
Absolutely.
of the whole thing.
It can even lead to resentment
Okay.
from both sides.
How so?
Those from designated groups might feel like they're being used as tokens,
Right.
while others may feel like they're being unfairly excluded.
So it can actually create more division
Yeah.
rather than fostering understanding.
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
It highlights the importance of going beyond superficial compliance
Right.
and really focusing on creating a culture of inclusion where everyone feels valued and respected.
But I imagine that's easier said than done.
It is.
So how can companies move beyond that, the tokenism
Yeah.
and create that genuine, inclusive culture?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
It requires a multifaceted approach.
Okay.
But one key aspect is leadership commitment.
Okay.
It can't just be lip service.
Right.
Leaders need to walk the walk and champion diversity at every level of the organization.
Okay.
They need to set the tone
Yeah.
and hold everyone accountable for creating a truly inclusive workplace.
So it starts at the top.
Yeah.
With leaders setting the example.
Absolutely.
Making it clear that this is not just an HR initiative,
Yeah.
but a core value
100%.
of the company.
And beyond leadership,
Yeah.
it's about creating a culture of open communication
Okay.
and
Yeah.
respect,
Yeah.
where people feel comfortable speaking up
Right.
about their experiences and perspectives.
Okay.
It's about providing training and education
Right.
to help employees understand and appreciate
Yeah.
the value of diversity.
Yeah.
And it's about implementing policies and practices
Mm-hmm.
that promote fairness
Okay.
and equity.
So it's a pretty significant cultural shift.
It can be.
Yeah.
And it's not something that happens overnight.
Right.
It requires ongoing effort, reflection,
Yeah.
and a willingness to learn and adapt.
But I imagine the payoff is huge.
It is,
So a more inclusive and equitable workplace, that benefits everyone, right?
without a doubt.
Yeah.
It leads to better decision-making,
Right.
increased innovation,
Mm-hmm.
improved employee morale,
Yeah.
and stronger relationships
Yeah. Yeah.
with customers and
Yeah.
communities.
So it makes good business sense
Yes.
and good social sense.
And good social sense.
We've talked a lot about the challenges and criticisms,
We have.
but it's important to acknowledge that there have also been significant successes
Absolutely.
and positive impact
100%.
since the act was implemented.
Yeah, the Employment Equity Act has played a crucial role in increasing the representation of designated groups
Okay.
in the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the number of women in management positions
Okay.
has steadily increased since the act came into effect.
That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
It shows that despite the challenges, progress is being made.
It is.
Yeah.
And beyond the numbers, we're seeing a shift in attitudes and perceptions.
Okay.
More and more companies are recognizing the value
Yeah.
of diversity and are actively working to create
Yeah.
more inclusive workplaces.
That's great news.
Yeah.
So it sounds like there's this growing awareness
Mm-hmm.
of the importance of it,
Absolutely.
not just as a legal requirement, but as
Yes.
a core principle for building a fairer,
Yeah.
more prosperous society.
Exactly.
While we're on the topic of success stories,
Okay.
there's another company I wanted to mention.
Okay, who's that?
Woolworths Holdings Limited.
Okay, yeah.
What are they doing?
They've been recognized for their comprehensive approach
Okay.
to employment equity, particularly their focus on empowering women
Okay.
in leadership positions.
Mm-hmm.
They've implemented targeted recruitment and mentorship programs
Okay.
to develop and support women leaders,
Yeah.
and they've set ambitious goals
Okay.
for increasing female representation
At all levels.
at all levels.
So they're not just talking the talk, they're walking the walk.
They are.
Yeah, and making real progress.
Real tangible progress.
Are there any specific examples of how their efforts have translated into positive outcomes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
One notable example is the significant increase
Okay.
in the number of women
Yeah.
on their board of directors.
Okay.
They've also seen a positive impact
Mhm.
on their overall business performance,
Oh, wow.
demonstrating
Mm-hmm.
that diversity and inclusion
Yeah.
are not just good for society,
Right.
but they're also good for the bottom line.
That's a powerful message.
It is.
It shows that embracing employment equity can be a win-win
A win-win.
for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
Stepping back for a moment,
Sure.
I'm curious about your thoughts on the overall impact of the act.
Okay.
Has it lived up to its promises?
Mm-hmm.
What would you say are its greatest strengths and weaknesses?
That's a big question.
Yeah.
I think it's important to remember that the act
Yeah.
is a product of its time.
Okay.
It was enacted
Mhm.
in a very specific historical and political context.
Right.
And it reflects the priorities and understanding of that time.
So it's not a static document
Well,
frozen in time?
Not at all.
It needs to evolve.
It does.
And
Changing realities in
Yeah.
South African society.
I think one of the act's greatest strengths
Okay.
is that it provides this clear legal framework
It does.
for addressing employment equity.
Yeah.
It sets out specific requirements,
Mm-hmm.
obligations for companies.
Absolutely.
It gives the department the authority to enforce those requirements.
Exactly.
So it's not just a set of guidelines.
Right.
It has real teeth.
It does.
But, of course, no law is perfect.
You're right.
The Employment Equity Act has its weaknesses.
It does.
What would you say are some of the biggest areas for improvement?
One of the biggest challenges is ensuring effective implementation and enforcement.
Okay.
As we've discussed, it's easy for companies to fall into the trap
Right.
of tokenism
Yeah.
or simply going through the motions
Hmm.
without making real substantive changes.
Right. Right.
We need to find ways to encourage
Yeah.
and incentivize companies to embrace the spirit of the act,
Right.
not just the letter of the law.
So it's not just about compliance.
No.
It's about creating that culture
Absolutely.
of genuine inclusion
100%.
and equity.
And another area for improvement
Okay.
is addressing the broader socioeconomic factors
Okay.
that contribute to inequality.
Can you elaborate on that? What are some of those factors?
Well, things like poverty, lack of access to quality education,
All right.
geographic disparities, all of these play a role
Yeah.
in perpetuating inequality.
So the act can only go so far in addressing these deeper
Exactly.
systemic issues.
It can't solve everything.
Right. Right.
We need a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
We need to tackle both the symptoms and the root causes of inequality.
And that requires a collaborative effort
Yes.
from everyone.
From government, businesses, civil society,
Right. Yeah.
individuals.
Yeah, it's not just about legal frameworks or corporate policies.
No.
It's about a fundamental shift in how we view and value each other.
You hit the nail on the head.
And speaking of shifting perspectives,
Yes.
I think it's important to acknowledge the psychological aspects
Oh, absolutely.
of all of this.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've thought about it from that angle.
Okay.
So what do you mean by the psychological aspects?
Well, consider the impact of stereotypes
Okay.
and unconscious bias.
Yeah.
These deep-seated beliefs can influence our perceptions
Right.
and decisions, often without us realizing it.
It's like those invisible hurdles that people have to overcome just to get a fair shot.
100%.
And it's not just about those from designated groups.
Right.
It's about those in positions of power
Yeah.
who might be making decisions based on these unconscious biases.
Exactly.
So it's about raising awareness, challenging our own assumptions,
Yes.
creating a more conscious
And inclusive mindset.
And that's where things like diversity training and awareness campaigns
Absolutely.
can play a role.
They can play a huge role
Yeah.
by understanding our own biases
Right.
and learning how to mitigate them. We can create a more level playing field
Okay.
for everyone.
Now, we've been focusing a lot on the South African context.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how these concepts translate to other parts of the world.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
While the specifics of implementation may vary,
Okay.
the core principles are relevant globally.
Okay.
Many countries are grappling with these issues
Right.
of inequality
Yeah.
and discrimination. And there's a growing recognition
Yeah.
of the need for proactive measures.
To address them.
Absolutely.
So it's not just a South African issue.
It's a global issue.
It's a global issue.
It is.
And we're seeing initiatives and approaches
Yeah.
around the world
All over the place.
to try to address this. Some countries are implementing mandatory pay gap reporting. Others are experimenting with blind recruitment
Yes.
to reduce bias.
Exactly.
So there's a lot of innovation and experimentation happening
100%.
to find the best way
The best ways.
to promote equity.
For sure.
So this is a journey. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
What role can individuals play?
Ooh, that's such an important question.
Yeah.
Because it emphasizes that this isn't just about top-down change.
Right.
It's about a collective effort
Yeah.
with everyone playing their part.
Okay. So break it down for me.
Okay.
What are some tangible actions individuals can take to promote this?
Well, one of the most powerful things individuals can do
Okay.
is simply be aware of their own biases.
Hold on. You keep mentioning bias.
I get
What does that mean in this context?
Bias refers to those unconscious preferences
Okay.
and prejudices
Right.
we all hold, often based on societal stereotypes. These biases can influence our judgments and decisions without us even realizing it.
So they're like hidden filters
Yes,
that shape our perceptions
100%.
and actions.
Even if we don't intend to be discriminatory,
Right.
it happens.
Okay. So just being aware of them is a huge step.
It's a huge step in the right direction.
Right.
We can start to question our assumptions,
Yeah.
challenge our thought patterns, and make a conscious effort to be more fair
Yeah.
and inclusive
Okay.
in our interactions.
So it's like shining a light on those hidden filters
Yes.
and saying, wait a minute.
Exactly.
Is this really fair?
Is this accurate?
Yeah, okay.
And beyond becoming more self-aware,
Yeah.
individuals can also be proactive
Okay.
in promoting inclusion
Yeah.
within their own workplaces or communities.
Give me some examples.
Okay, it could be as simple as speaking up when
Okay.
you witness something unfair
Right.
or discriminatory.
Okay.
It could involve advocating for more diverse hiring practices
Okay.
or supporting initiatives that promote inclusion and belonging.
Okay.
It could even be as basic as being a good ally
Right.
to colleagues from marginalized groups,
Okay.
listening to their experiences and amplifying their voices.
So taking action, however small,
Yes,
to create a more welcoming environment.
absolutely.
And it's not just about what we do in the workplace,
Totally.
right? It's about how we show up in our communities, our families.
In our everyday lives.
Yeah, in our everyday lives.
Employment equity isn't just a policy or a program.
Right.
It's a way of life.
It's a way of life.
It's about embodying the values of fairness, respect, and inclusion in everything we do.
That's powerful.
It is.
It's a reminder that we all have a responsibility
We do.
to create a more just and equitable world.
Yes.
And it's something we can start doing right now.
Absolutely.
In our own lives.
In our own lives.
With our own actions.
I think it's important to remember
Yeah.
that this is an ongoing journey.
Right.
There's always more to learn, more to do, more ways to grow.
Speaking of growing, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how the field itself is evolving.
Oh, okay.
What are some of the key trends and
Yeah.
developments that you're seeing that might shape the future of this work?
One of the most exciting trends is the growing focus on intersectionality.
We touched on this earlier. We did, but I think it's worth unpacking it a bit further.
Okay.
What does that actually mean in this context?
It means recognizing that people have multiple identities,
Okay.
and those identities can intersect
Right.
in ways that create unique experiences
Yeah.
of privilege and oppression.
Yeah.
For example, a Black woman in the tech industry might face different challenges
Right.
than a white woman
Yeah.
or a Black man.
So it's about understanding that people's experiences aren't one-dimensional.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're shaped by a complex interplay of factors.
Right.
And as we become more aware of intersectionality, we can start to develop more nuanced and effective approaches
Okay.
to employment equity.
So we can move beyond simply checking boxes.
Exactly.
Or start to create workplaces
That are truly inclusive of all identities.
It's like zooming out to see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What other trends are shaping the future of this work?
Another major trend is the increasing use of technology,
Okay.
both as a tool for promoting equity
Mm-hmm.
and as a factor that can potentially exacerbate
Okay.
existing inequalities.
You've mentioned AI a few times,
Yeah.
but how else is technology playing a role?
On the one hand, technology can be used to create a more level playing field.
Okay.
For example, some companies are using data analytics
Okay.
to track their diversity metrics
Right.
and identify areas where they need to improve.
Okay.
Others are using virtual reality
Really?
to simulate
Oh, wow.
different workplace scenarios
Yeah.
and help employees develop their cultural competence.
So leveraging the power of technology to identify blind spots and create those inclusive experiences.
100%.
But on the other hand, technology can also create new forms of inequality.
It can.
So it's like a double-edged sword.
It is.
We need to be mindful of the opportunities, but also the potential pitfalls as it relates to all this.
And that's why it's so important to have these conversations.
Right.
And to be intentional about how we design and implement technology in ways that promote fairness and inclusion.
This has been such an enlightening discussion.
It has.
We've covered so much.
We have.
I feel like I've learned a lot. Good. I want to end by circling back to our listener.
Okay.
If you could distill all this down to one key takeaway, what would it be?
If I had to sum it all up
Yeah.
in one sentence,
Yeah.
I would say
Yeah.
employment equity is not a destination. It's a journey.
It's a journey.
It's an ongoing process of learning, growing, and striving to create a more just and equitable world.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
It's a journey that we're all on together.
We are.
And each step we take, however small, can make a difference.
Absolutely. It's a journey worth taking.
Now, for our listeners who are eager to continue exploring this,
Yes.
we'll have some links to some fantastic resources
Perfect.
in the show notes.
Great.
Before we wrap up part 2,
Yeah.
I want to leave you with a question to ponder.
Okay.
If you could wave a magic wand
Mm-hmm.
and eliminate one major obstacle to achieving true employment equity,
Okay.
what would it be
Ooh,
and why?
that's a good one.
We'll be back soon to delve deeper into this question
Okay.
and explore even more nuances
That's good.
of this complex and crucial topic. And we're back for the final part of our deep dive into employment equity in South Africa.
It's been a really insightful journey
It has.
exploring this complex topic.
In part 2, we left our listeners with a question.
Yes.
If you could wave a magic wand
Mm-hmm.
and eliminate one major obstacle
Right.
to achieving true employment equity, what would it be?
That's a tough one, but a good one.
So what obstacle comes to mind for you?
If I could eliminate just one,
Mm-hmm.
it would have to be unconscious bias.
You know, I was thinking the same thing.
Really?
Yeah, it's so deeply ingrained
It really is.
and can be so hard to even recognize
Yes, absolutely.
and then address.
It affects every stage of the employment process, from
Yeah.
recruitment and hiring to promotions, performance valuations.
Yeah.
It can lead to qualified candidates being overlooked, talented employees being passed over for advancement opportunities.
It's like this hidden force
Yes.
that's working against equity,
100%.
even when people have good intentions.
And what makes it so challenging is that it operates below the level of conscious awareness.
Right.
We may not even realize we're being influenced by these biases.
Yeah, making them even harder to address.
Exactly.
So if we could magically eliminate unconscious bias,
Okay.
what would that actually look like in the workplace?
Imagine a workplace where hiring decisions
Okay.
are based solely on merit and qualifications,
Right.
where everyone, regardless of race, gender, disability, or any other characteristic,
Yeah.
is given an equal opportunity.
But succeed,
Exactly.
it sounds like a utopia.
It does, doesn't it?
Everyone feels valued, respected, empowered to contribute their unique talents and perspectives.
It would be amazing.
Diversity is not just a buzzword,
No,
but a lived reality.
100%.
Everyone has a seat at the table,
Yeah.
a voice in the conversation.
That's the dream.
But even if we could wave that magic wand,
Yeah.
wouldn't we still be left with systemic barriers and historical inequalities?
You're absolutely right. That need to be addressed.
Eliminating unconscious bias is a crucial step,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not the only step.
Right.
We still need to dismantle the systems and structures
Okay.
that perpetuate inequality.
Right.
We need to address the legacy of apartheid,
Yeah.
the ongoing socioeconomic disparities
Okay.
that continue to disadvantage certain groups.
So we're working on multiple levels here.
We are.
We need to address both the individual biases
Yeah.
that affect our decisions
Mm-hmm.
and those systemic factors that create those biases.
It's a holistic approach.
Yes.
It requires a shift in mindset, a change in behaviors,
Yeah.
and a transformation of systems.
It's a daunting task.
Daunting, but achievable.
Okay.
And I think South Africa, with its unique history and its commitment to social justice, is well positioned
Yeah.
to lead the way.
I like that optimistic outlook.
It's important to be optimistic.
Now, I want to talk about something we haven't really touched on yet.
Okay.
Mental health
Yes.
in the context of employment equity. That's an incredibly important aspect.
Yeah,
It often gets overlooked.
it does.
When we talk about inclusive workplaces,
Right.
we need to consider the whole person,
Okay.
not just their skills and qualifications.
So how does mental health fit into this?
Well, individuals from marginalized groups often face unique stressors
Okay.
and challenges
Yeah.
that can impact their mental health.
Okay.
Things like discrimination, microaggressions,
Yeah.
the pressure to constantly prove themselves.
Right.
It takes a toll.
It's like they're carrying an extra burden
They are.
that others might not even see.
Exactly.
And that can lead to higher rates of anxiety, depression, burnout.
Absolutely.
And there's still so much stigma
So much.
around mental health
Especially workplace.
in the workplace.
So people might be reluctant to speak up or seek help.
Yeah, for fear of judgment or discrimination.
Right. So it
Oh.
creates this vicious cycle.
It does.
The challenges go unaddressed.
Yeah.
And then it leads to all these negative outcomes.
Mhm.
Decreased productivity, absenteeism, even job loss.
So how can companies create a more mentally healthy and supportive environment,
Oh.
especially for those employees from marginalized groups?
First, they need to foster a culture of openness and psychological safety,
Okay.
where employees feel comfortable
Yeah.
talking about their mental health
Right.
without fear of judgment.
Creating that sense of trust and safety is so important.
It's foundational.
Yeah. What else can companies do?
They can provide access to mental health resources,
Okay.
like employee assistance programs, counseling services, mental health days.
Right.
They can also implement policies that promote work-life balance,
Mhm.
reduce stress, and prevent burnout.
Those are great practical steps.
Yeah.
But it requires a broader shift in mindset too, right?
Yeah.
Recognizing that mental health is just as important as physical health,
100%.
and that supporting employees' well-being
Yeah.
is not just a nice to have.
No.
It's essential.
It's a business imperative.
Yeah. It's about creating a workplace where everyone feels supported,
Yes.
valued, empowered to bring their whole self
Their whole selves.
to work.
And when we talk about employment equity, that has to include mental health.
This has been such a rich and insightful conversation.
Yes.
I always like to end our deep dives
Yeah.
by leaving our listeners with something to ponder.
I like that.
So my question for our listeners is this. What would a truly equitable and inclusive South Africa look like to you?
That's a good one.
What changes would you like to see?
Yeah.
Not just in the workplace, but in society as a whole.
In society as a whole.
And what role can you play in making that vision a reality?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, it challenges us to imagine a better future
It does.
and to think about how we can contribute to that future.
Absolutely, because employment equity is not just about laws and policies.
Right.
It's about creating a society
Yeah.
where everyone has the opportunity to reach their full potential.
To live a life of dignity and respect.
Beautifully said. It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
Likewise. And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into employment equity in South Africa. We hope you found it informative, thought-provoking, and maybe even inspiring. Remember, the journey towards a more just and equitable world continues, and each of us has a role to play.